I would like to call as my first witness, Pat Hayes. You come to the stand, please.
My name is Pat Hayes. I'm an electrician by trade. I've been an auto worker for more than 30 years. For the past 27 years, I've worked at the Ford Motor Kansas City Assembly Plant. I'm a member of United Auto Workers Local 249. We represent 7,500 active and retired members at the plant. While Wall Street has gone on an orgy of bonuses, golden parachutes, and tax cuts, our members have not had a raise since 2003. We are often characterized as being overpaid and lazy, but I want to tell you that each F-150 that rolls off the end of the line at the Kansas City Assembly Plant contains 17.5 hours of UAW labor. We make an average of $58 in pay and benefits an hour, so if you multiply that out, each truck that rolls off the end of the line has $1,015 worth of labor. And those vehicles sell for between $25,000 and $55,000. The proposed fiscal cliff is being used to create a moral panic, to create a sense that we need to make cuts in the social safety net. People connected with Fix the Debt, which represents the CEOs of major corporations in this country, say that Social Security and Medicare need to be cut. They're too expensive. But for our members, they're critical parts of their retirement. The UAW has negotiated a contract that provides a full retirement after 30 years on the job. And for most of our members who are on their feet 10 hours a day, working on a car that comes to them each and every minute of those 10 hours, their bodies are destroyed by the time they're 50 years old. They're not pundits who are sitting in front of a TV set. They're not academics teaching a class. They're not corporate CEOs on sailboats. They're people that need to retire by the time they've spent 30 years in an auto plant. Cutting Medicare, which is a critical part of the medical benefits that our members get in retirement, would bankrupt what we call the VEBA, the Voluntary Employee Benefit Association, which pays for medical benefits for our retirees, some 1,500,000 American workers. In addition, most of our members will get about $18,000 a year in pension, although we were forced to agree to a two-tier contract in 2007 that provides only a 401k for new hires. But $18,000, those people also need Social Security in order to maintain a middle-class lifestyle. So we say that United Auto Workers says that we need jobs in this country. We need to get the economy rolling. That's going to require government stimulus, infrastructure construction, and we don't need to cut our way out of any kind of supposed economic problems we may have.
Thank you, Mr. Hayes. Our next witness is Ann Pritchett. Ms. Pritchett, would you please identify yourself and describe how you and your constituents are impacted by the fiscal cliff?
My name is Ann Pritchett. I've been a teacher for over 30 years in the Kansas City, Missouri School District. And the fiscal cliff, I should say, I call it the fiscal speed bump. Policies would negatively affect, first of all, our students who have already, many of whom live in poverty and are very dependent on what's provided for them at school. So any cut to the funding that we have would have a huge negative impact on those children. Any extra services would have to immediately be discontinued. For example, field trips. I had a friend who taught at a school that was right across the street from Swope Park, and 90% of the children in her class had never been to the zoo. We have children who aren't, for one reason or another, made aware of the wonderful cultural opportunities that we have here in Kansas City. In other words, if the school doesn't do it for them, it doesn't happen. So field trips are very expensive, but those would have to go immediately. Teacher salaries, of course, would have to be cut, and I don't think I need to explain the negative impact that would have. Also, the cost of benefits, as the man before me testified, just gets higher and higher, and that's a growing concern for every school district across the country. And also, 50% of all teachers in the classrooms today can either retire now or sometime within the next 5 years. When they leave, if the budget is cut drastically enough, there won't be any money to hire teachers to replace them. But yet, people still keep having children, so we will still have students, but we're going to have a pretty significant reduction in the number of teachers who will be available to teach them. Class sizes will likely increase. There are schools in New York right now that have 50 and 60 students in each classroom because they're experiencing some, New York and New Orleans both are experiencing some shock doctrine kind of techniques in their school systems where increasing class sizes is it just has to happen because they don't have enough teachers and they have way too many children. Also, most school buildings are not brand new. And this is beautiful here, but it's not anything like most of our children go to school in every day. And it costs a lot more money to maintain older facilities than to build new ones. But the money is not there to build new schools. And of course, it would be completely gone with these austerity measures. Transportation, the number one expense for a school district is payroll, and number two is transportation. We'd have to probably take bus transportation away from a lot of our children. In Kansas, Governor Brownback's goal is to reduce the schools to 1992 funding, and he's almost there. And just as an example, my salary, just through modest increases over time, I make almost twice what I made 20 years ago. So why does anybody think that we can survive on what we had 20 years ago? Because I think everything almost costs twice as much today as it did then. We would have some drastic negative impacts, mainly on children. And the other things that we worry about in education are things like healthcare and services from the community that we're not directly involved in, but that do affect our boys and girls. And we just went through the huge vaccination check, and I think 30% of our kids had not had their vaccinations. Those are expensive. And most of them get them through some kind of public program, city clinic, etc. We'd hate to see those health services cut back. So anything they do, right now we're surviving, especially in Kansas, the schools are surviving on just a thread. So there's really no room to cut any more of them back.
Thank you, Ms. Pritchett. Our next witness is Tony Cage. Would you please take a stand? Mr. Cage, would you identify yourself and explain how you are connected with the so-called Fiscal Cliff and your concerns?
Sure. Hi, my name is Anthony Cage, and for the past several years I've been working through a social service organization here in Kansas City that helps out people that have disabilities that are homeless or have recently been homeless and are at risk for returning to homelessness. And I've seen a lot of people here in our most vulnerable segment of society struggling day in and day out, trying to make ends meet, trying to find ever-dwindling resources. You talk about this pending so-called fiscal cliff and these cuts that are hopefully not coming. Some of them are already coming. I see prescribers writing prescriptions for medications for physical or behavioral health conditions, and the insurance companies turning them down, telling the prescriber, you can't prescribe that. That costs too much. You need to prescribe this older, non-effective medication that has all of these side effects instead. So they have to get on the phone and they have to call the insurance companies and sit there and argue with them back and forth for days to try and get people the medications that they need. I've seen housing voucher programs that we try and help people access the amounts that they'll cover. They've gone down. We've had several buildings that we used to try and house people in that we can't access anymore. Just this past week, I was working with an individual who gets less than $700 a month to live on every month. He has $16 in food stamps that he's provided with. And he used to go to one food pantry that a few months ago they closed because of lack of funding and resources. So helped him out to go to a Catholic church over in the Northeast. Went there just yesterday, and the priest was explaining to me, you're going to have to find another food pantry in January because we're closing. There was just another $2.4 million cut in Missouri's budget, and we're not going to have any more food for you. So you're talking about making more cuts. The people here that we're working with, the most vulnerable in our society, here in our city, we don't need any more cuts for them. They're not making it already.
Thank you, Mr. Cage.